Hello, welcome. This is J.R. Stewart, the conservative social justice warrior, and I'm back with another weekly video. This video is going to cover what I consider the greatest political speech ever given by a head of state. And it's the Gettysburg Address given by Lincoln, written by Lincoln and given by Lincoln. I have my iPad here, so occasionally, you guys can see, I have my iPad 2 here. Occasionally I will look down to read from. I don't have the whole thing memorized. I know a lot of the passages from it, but I'm gonna talk to you about the address. I'm not just gonna read it. I'm gonna analyze it for you. I'm gonna break it down. This is what I do, people. I'm an engineer by profession. I study cosmology. That's my first love. Now I'm really starting to get an appreciation for history. The research, the studying, tying it all together to try to extrapolate how people, the thinking process, how people thought back then, their feelings about certain issues. And it takes a lot of research to do that, but I now think I have enough background information to break down the Gettysburg Address for you by Lincoln. And this is part of the ongoing process of mine to show you how the black minions and the white liberals lied to black people. They lied to all of us about what's really going on. So listen to the Gettysburg Address from Lincoln as I break it down for you, and you tell me. I want to hear from all the naysayers. Tell me how the white liberal in the media and the black minions have not been lying to us. I'm going to break down some of these misconceptions that have been popular. The speech starts off 70 years ago. And for those of you who don't know what a score is, it's 20 years. So he's basically said 87 years ago. He said, our fathers brought forth on this continent, a new nation, conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Wow. Powerful words. Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, not in the backseat of a car, not in a no-tell motel, conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Okay, sounds good so far. He says, now we are engaged in a great civil war. That nation that was conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created, is now in a civil war. He says, this nation is being testing whether that nation, now listen to the words now, because it's not like today, that during that time, during the 1800s, most of the great speech writers, and Lincoln was certainly one of them, chose their words carefully, very skillful. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, he didn't say this nation, he said that nation. I'm going to break it down to you as to why he's saying that nation. He said, or any nation so conceived and dedicated. So it's not just the U.S. that was conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition all men are created equal. He's now saying that nation that was conceived by the founding fathers and all nations so conceived and so dedicated, he's basically saying that we're all in the same boat together. And he's basically saying, that the test is to whether we can endure, whether we can survive this. Excuse me. He said, we are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as the final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that nation might live. Once again, not this nation can live. He's saying that nation can live. That this is what these men were fighting for. This is what the purpose of the war was. There's separation between this and that. I don't have to go through, because English is not my best subject, people, believe it or not. I know that I find that amazing, but trust me, it's not. But I do understand what this and that means. And he's not saying this nation. He said that nation. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. See, now he says this ground. He's referring to where they are. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our powers, our poor powers, to add or detract from it. He's basically pointing out that the great effort made by these men, both dead and alive, who survived the war. We can't add to what they've done. We can't contribute to what they did. We weren't there on the battlefield. Nor can we take away from what they did. We can't add to it. We can't take away from it. That's just how great this sacrifice was, this effort. He says the world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. You may not remember the Gettysburg Address. You may not remember comments from historians, what people wrote, said, believed about the Civil War. But we all know that it took place. And not just here, but around the world. He said, it is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so nobly advanced. For the living. He's saying that those who survived the war, the living, that we have unfinished work. This is the challenge he's laying down. We have unfinished work. Well, Lincoln, Mr. President, what exactly is this unfinished work that we have to do? Well, let's get to it. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us. Really? Dedicated to the great task remaining before us. We have unfinished work, and we have to be dedicated to the task remaining before us. That from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. Listen to these powerful words. Last great measure of devotion? It's another way of saying they died for what they believed in. And they laid it down on the battlefield. They wasn't faking about this. This is real. This is grown folks' business. He goes on to say that we here highly resolve that these dead men should not have died in vain. Highly resolve that these dead men did not die in vain. That this nation, see, now he gets to this nation. See, before he talked about that nation. Now he's talking about this nation. He talked about unresolved and unfinished work that had to be taken care of, and that we need to be devoted to it. We have to make sure that those soldiers who died on that battlefield did not die in vain with their last full measure of devotion to a cause. This is what he's saying to us. There's still work to be done. But that nation was born and conceived in liberty, devoted to the proposition that all men are created equal. This nation now is what he's talking about. This is where he finished, with this nation. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. He didn't say anything about maintaining the old system. See, this is where the historians in the schools lie to you. People tell you America's a racist nation, that the people back then, America's always been a racist nation. Even those that didn't, own slaves were racist. Yet, you have people who died believing that this nation needed to be free. Died believing in the proposition that all men are created equal. And they took it up on the battlefield. And you have people, Democrats, Southerners, Confederates, who believe that it was their right to enslave others. That freedom was really for white people, not for black people. When they said all men are created equal, all white men, because black people were not people. They were subhuman. The white liberal today still consider black people subhuman. This is how little progress the white liberal has made. That this nation, under God, should have a new birth of freedom. Lincoln understood that we had to put away. Let us set aside the old concepts here. The old thinking that we will tolerate slavery in certain areas. We'll put up with slavery in certain areas. We'll put up with people being treated less than human in certain areas. That those who were willing to tolerate that, to accept it, so this nation could be conceived. We have to put that aside. That was that nation, is what he's saying. Not to be confused with this nation that's going through a rebirth, a new birth of freedom. The new birth of freedom does not involve slavery, does not involve discrimination, does not involve Jim Crow, the pig law, the black codes. It does not involve separate but equal. It doesn't involve destroying the black family, destroying black schools, destroying the black economic base. It doesn't involve any of that. He's saying that this nation, the new birth, going to be founded on a new freedom. And that government of the people, see, recognize that the government has a central role here. Unlike Woodrow Wilson, who brought separate but equal to the masses, to the country. That wasn't the role of government. That wasn't what this new freedom was about. But Woodrow Wilson, the father of the progressive movement, was a Democrat. So they never quite got the memo. They speak down about the Gettysburg Address in Lincoln. And that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from earth. Well, let's start with the first part of that. Of the people. Oh yeah, we have different cultures, races, religious background represent government, which is great. That was part of it. That government needs to be of the people. We still have too many people that are there for life, who are not rotating in and out of government, but that's another story. He said, by the people. By the people means with the consent of. That I give you my vote to govern. And so when you have low turnout elections, people, that's not part of the new freedom here. See, you jeopardize the new freedom and its growth and its opportunity to grow when you don't vote. You especially jeopardize it when you vote for that skank Democrat Party. And government should operate for the people. You see, when Barack Hussein Obama, former president, cut money from HBCUs to give it to Latino schools, that wasn't for the people. When he cut money for the DC voucher program, allowing a handful of black kids to escape inner city schools and go to a private school, same private school that he sends his girls to when he was in office. That wasn't for the people. That was for his white slave masters, the white liberal, socialist progressive, communist Democrat, who wants to make sure to block the escape of black people as much as possible, everywhere they can. And he says this new freedom, this new nation, this new freedom, that nation will never perish from earth. That's a message to the rest of the world. But also it's a powerful message here. Let me put my iPad down for a second while I close out this video. See, we have unfinished work here. After the death of Lincoln, the Republicans, brave Republicans, who were dedicated to the cause of unfinished work, created a system we call Reconstruction. Reconstruction was the greatest period, progressive period for blacks, when blacks made the most progress from slave to Congress, from slave to government to business owners in American history. The new freedom involved the Enforcement Act of 1870 and the Anti-KKK Act of 1871 to combat and fight the KKK, an organization founded and funded by the Democrat Party for the sole purpose to intimidate Southerners, mostly blacks and some whites, who dared vote for Republicans. This is their purpose. And imagine that we've reconstituted the KKK under the guise of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, who try to intimidate folks not to vote for Republicans. You're talking about voter suppression. See, the new freedom didn't involve any of the things that Democrats have done historically, and even today. But it did involve passing and ratifying the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, the end of slavery, citizenship, the right to vote, and due process, passed by Republicans. That was part of the new freedom. Oh, JR, what has Republicans done for us? See how stupid that sounds when you're educated, when you have truth on your side? You see why I look at people in such disdain? I know as soon as they open their mouth, it's not if they're stupid. It's really just a degree of how stupid they are, how ignorant. Now, we're all ignorant of something. Even me. There are things that I don't know. That's only because, and most of us don't know what we don't know. But where I come from, where I grew up, in Bonton, there's a term, a derivative of ignorant called ignorant. Ignorant, for those of you who don't know, who are not from Bonton, means a person is willfully stupid. It's not that they don't know what they don't know. They are willfully stupid, cheerful, gleeful about it, happy to be ignorant, stupid. And so when you see these people acting up or saying something crazy, people that know just sit back and in Texas, they may say, bless your heart. Mainly white people will say that. Bless your heart. But in the black community, somebody, especially from Bonton, who lived and grew up during the era that I did, may say, oh, but that child is just ignorant. And you see, we have work to do here, people. We do have a new freedom for this nation that has to evolve. We have to get back, Republicans. We have to get back to fighting for freedom. We gotten sidetracked in this financial nonsense, handed to you by white liberals, telling you to stay in your lane. Oh, it's your job, JR, you and your fellow conservative Republicans, to balance the books. After we spend up all the money on our program, y'all got to go make the tough choices, do the cutting, and balance the books. That's your role. Don't get involved in the social stuff. That's for us. We need to recognize the black family has been destroyed. And now Democrats, white liberals are destroying not just black families, families across America. They destroyed the black school system, a school system that was set the bar really high, motivated, dedicated to excellence, producing some of the most scholarly black people in the history of America. Just go read some of the early schools, especially Dunbar High School in D.C. It reads like a who's who of black history. Not anymore. The white liberal made sure that they had to fix that. Black men who were some of the most successfully employed in America, the white liberal had to deal with that. The black family were black kids. 90%, I've heard numbers as high as 95% up until 1960, were being raised in a household with a mother and a father. No, not anymore. The white liberal took care of that. Structuring the black family, incentivizing the black woman to get rid of her black man. White liberals took care of that. They dealt with that. Can't have black families sticking together. Husbands and wives staying together. That kind of solidarity and strength is detrimental to our cause. Those sentencing guidelines brought to you by Bill Clinton, which he later regretted signing. He just wanted 100,000 new officers put in effect. But Jim Crow Joe Biden, current president, he wrote those sentencing guidelines. He wrote the sentencing guidelines for the Clinton crime bill. He did that. No regrets. You know, he made it clear that he didn't want his son or his children or his neighbor's children to be going to those racial schools, those integrated jungle schools. He didn't want them being around blacks. Then he says, oh, JR, well, black kids don't have to go to, be next to white kids in order to learn. That's all I was trying to say. No, Jim Crow Joe Biden, that's not what you were trying to say. But I will tell you this. Yes, black kids don't need to be around white kids to learn. They did quite well before the white liberal integrated and took over their school system. High schools where black kids were learning calculus and foreign languages, Latin being one of them. Learn how to write, studying great literature. We didn't need white kids to learn at that point. And when you looked at the test results of these kids, outperforming white kids, some of the best schools, white schools in the nation, were being outperformed by black kids, grandchildren of former slaves. How embarrassing is that for the white liberal? You had to take care of it. I understand. You see, I'm the most dangerous person to you, white liberal, because I understand how you think. I studied you. I know your tactics. I know what you're doing, what you're capable of. And now that you're being exposed, you send the black minions out there to do your bidding. You want to stand back in the covers. So you send Barack Hussein Obama out. You send Joy Reid and Melvin Smith and Don Lemon, Michael Eric Dyson, Nia Henderson, Abby, all the rest of them. I have a video link that I'm going to embed in here on the black minions. If you get a chance, please watch it so you know exactly who I'm talking about. This is what they send out to do their bidding. They send these people out to lie to you. Keep black people focused on racism. Keep them scared of the police. Keep them in a constant state of victim mentality. So either you're scared or you're fearful and you're acting out and frustrated. This is what the black minions do for their white slave masters. They attack Winsome Sears, Lieutenant Governor-elect of Virginia. Virginia, a former slave state, now has elected. They're not appointed. She didn't just wake up one day and someone said, let's see, any, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, you, Lieutenant Governor. No, elected. The people there elected her, a Republican, in a Democrat stronghold. This is how pissed off Democrats are of their own leadership. Some of them are starting to wake up. Finally. Some black people are starting to wake up. Finally. We may have a chance to finish this unfinished work that Lincoln talked about. These new freedoms. Can't let that white liberal, socialist progressive, communist, Marxist, Democrat Party and their black millions who do their bidding, can't let them dictate and control us. Those days are over with. I'm glad to see that Republicans are starting to grow a backbone. Primarily thanks to Donald J. Trump. He showed it's okay to stand up to Democrats. Congressman like Jim Jordan stands up, not afraid of them. And then there are many others in Congress that are starting to do the same. I watched Kevin McCarthy, minority leader for Republicans in the House, speak today, going after Nancy Pelosi over the censure deal, pointing out the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party. I don't know, he didn't hold any punches. Kevin made me proud that he's our leader in the House. And I look forward to him becoming Speaker. I had my doubts. Today those doubts were erased. And so I would encourage all Republicans, stop this nonsense of cowing the Democrats. Stop believing that they're the party to govern and that you're the party to criticize. You want to stand on the sidelines. If you don't want to govern and do your job and be responsible, then get the hell out of the way. Let someone else fill that seat, and so we can have a fighting chance to get the new freedom to finish the unfinished work that Lincoln talked about. Guys, this has been my interpretation, my background filling information to help you understand, and hopefully you'll go back and reread the Gettysburg Address. Take the notes and the information that I provided. Now go back and read it. And you tell me, this video will be posted on YouTube. Feel free to hit the comment section. I do once a week go through and read the comments and try to respond back. So I'll do the same for this video. Go back and reread it after you've watched this video. And tell me what you think. Tell me if the historians and what you learned in school and what society and what the news media tells you to think about Lincoln, about Republicans, and tell me if they accurately told you the truth. Or, as I know, that I've told you the truth. Who's more noble here? Those lying liberals? The press? The black minions? Or me? And people like Candace, Larry Elders, Lieutenant Colonel West, who I have a great deal of admiration and respect for. Now Winsome Sears, Officer Tatum, and a bunch of other people that I haven't mentioned. Who's more admirable? Who's more noble? Us, who tell you the truth, or them, who lied to you? So this has been J.R. Stewart, the conservative social justice warrior, with my weekly video broadcast. And I look forward to hearing your comments. And thank you for all the support from all the people who watch the video, who give me words of encouragement to keep me going. Thank you. Have a good night. Have a good week. Have a good holiday. And we're going to have a good year. And we're going to go into 2022 with a lot more vigor than we had going into this year. So look forward. I look forward to working with each and every one of you to help develop the new freedom for this nation that we just so deservedly need. Thank you so much.